In League of Legends, there exists an unsolvable problem. There are philosophical impossibilities, such that it is impossible to prove that we aren't all just living in a simulation, or that the color red looks the same to me or you. There are also physical impossibilities, like traveling at the speed of light, but none of this really matters in the context of gaming. So what problem am I talking about? To explain, let's take a brief look at some gameplay from a student of mine who's playing Vi in Diamond 1 Elo. They're in the middle of a dragon contest in a pretty tense game. This is the match deciding play, and he's watching intently as the dragon gets lower and lower into smite range. So intently, in fact, that him and his entire Diamond 1 team completely missed the Aurelia that was showing on the map, flanking from mid lane. Of course, Kog'Maw, having nowhere to go, dies instantly, and the fight is essentially lost immediately. I'd be willing to bet that a lot of you watching this right now didn't notice the minimap at all until it was highlighted. And if you were in the game, the chance that you would have noticed the flank would have been even lower, almost zero. This is not a specific player problem or a League of Legends problem. It is innately a human problem. The human brain is simply not capable of multitasking, at least not in the true meaning of the word. There have been multiple studies published in scientific journals that detail this phenomenon, and they all point towards the same thing, that the human mind and brain lack the architecture to perform 2 or more tasks simultaneously, and that when we attempt to multitask, we are usually switching between one task and another. The human brain has evolved to single task. So as much as some people want to think they're capable of texting and driving, they aren't. There's a reason why it's illegal, and I don't think anybody can, in good faith, argue that they drive perfectly while looking down at their phone. In the context of League, what we're getting at is that between needing to look at the dragon HP to smite here and looking at the enemy in front of him to space correctly, that expecting someone to be able to also look at the minimap is practically impossible. We can only achieve one task at a time. We may be able to look at the dragon to see if we need to smite, or we could look at Malphite, but then our attention wanders from the dragon and we can no longer focus on smiting it. It could go back and forth like this really rapidly, but never in a true sense can we look at both at the same time. So if we need to add more things to our list of things to check and include the minimap, it's going to take us longer to get back around to looking at dragon, which is going to negatively impact our ability to smite, and I don't think anyone really wants that. In fact, this problem is actively addressed by multiple articles that have dubbed this a switch cost, or a reduction in performance accuracy or speed that results from shifting between tasks. Behavioral costs of task switching are typically unavoidable. Individuals almost always take longer to complete a task and do so with more errors when switching between tasks than when they stay with one. The more tasks we need to do, the more poorly they are going to be executed. No matter how good of a player you are, Challenger or Iron, we cannot fix this problem. It's a human limitation, and it's not going to magically go away any day soon. However, this doesn't mean that you can't play around it, and that's what we're going to address today. We may not be able to solve the problem, but by acknowledging our lack of ability to multitask, we can play in a way that allows us to mitigate the problems that arise. It all starts from admitting that we, as humans, just have limitations. And that's actually part of our philosophy behind our service at skillcaps.com. The strategies you see in Challenger and pro games with the most talented players who game 12 hours a day don't exactly work for you in the ranks you're stuck in with terrible teammates. That's why we teach the most effective way to improve and climb ranks from the perspective of the average player. If you don't believe us, well, don't worry. It is completely risk-free to try us out, as you're kept safe with rank up insurance. If you don't significantly improve while actively using skill caps, then you get your money back, no questions asked. You can learn more at the end of this guide, or check us out with the link in the description. All right, now let's get on to today's guide. There are 3 things that we can do in order to help with this issue. Let's explore using another one of my students' clips, this time coming from Silver. We're going to blur out the minimap here and show that MF is looking for a pick onto the enemy bot lane. After successfully killing the enemy Xayah, let's go ahead and stop the clip. Throughout that entire fight, it's extremely likely that the minimap was never looked at once. And while ideally we would love to be able to say, just look at the minimap, bro, I think it's fair to say that the action that's happening right in front of you is often what takes the brunt of our mental capacity. Now is likely the first chance that we have to glance at the minimap and evaluate what's going on. So seeing this and feeling safe, MF immediately clicks back towards the wave. But here's the problem. If we look at the map just a second later, we can tell that Rumble is coming towards us, and we're obviously in a bit of a rough spot having clicked towards him now. This leads to a Rumble ult being dropped and MF finding herself in a less than ideal position as her support dies immediately. So what can we do to prevent this? It's not like we can really force ourselves to have that much better awareness in the middle of the fight. If we go back and look at the minimap during this, we obviously had plenty of time to realize to get out, but like we said, multitasking is pretty much impossible. However, there is one thing. Acknowledge what you don't know. Let's watch a clip of me having a similar situation while recording a Smurf commentary. I look to gank top, and because I'm incredibly strong, I'm not concerned about Rengar's counter gank. We end up going 2 for 0, but I do get pretty low while diving the tower. If we pause now, what I ideally want to do is go back to my jungle to get some more gold before resetting. But let me play out the clip so you can hear immediately what my first thought was.
Nice. Okay. I didn't see where Syndra went. Okay, we see it now, so it's fine. But I think initially when I was just distracted in the fight, I just kind of assumed that I have a gap of information there. It's hard to focus on everything at once, so just immediately start backing up in case Syndra was moving during that time that I wasn't paying attention.
Right after the gank, I was clicking back towards tower just because I knew that I was missing info. If we only use the information that's immediately available to us after the fight, we are going to be led into a false sense of security. The map, if you only look at this frame, doesn't feel particularly dangerous. But if we go back and look at the last time Syndra showed on map, maybe you're going to feel a bit differently. The difference in time between the top play and now is 22 seconds. Plenty of time for Syndra to leave mid and come top to counter my gank. Essentially, we need to realize the time periods where our attention is hyper-focused, and immediately scramble to refamiliarize ourselves with the game state after any play. In the time that you need to regather information and ask where everyone is, you should start acting as though the worst case scenario is happening. My click backwards when compared to Miss Fortune's click forward tells all the difference in our mindset. And we can watch another student of mine struggle in this exact same position as well. He goes for a gank top, and while he successfully does kill the enemy Malphite, it does take him a while of intense focus. Both of them are obviously pretty low right now, and given what we know now, we should act as though the enemy jungler will be camping the bush, waiting for us as we try to return to our camps. Unfortunately, he doesn't consider this and ends up face checking into the enemy Lee Sin. I'm sure you can see now that this is an incredibly common problem amongst all elos of play. None of us, regardless of rank, had perfect awareness during our fights. The only difference is what I chose to do after it was over. So really, there are two ideas here. One, acknowledge your hyper-focus periods where you aren't switching tasks. And the second you are able to go back to looking for more information, treat the game as if the worst case scenario is happening until you confirm things. And two, before we enter a period of intense focus, we need to be very aware of what could happen during that time. If we look at the start of the Vi, Bel'Veth, and the Miss Fortune examples, we can see that we actually had information beforehand that would have helped us. Knowing that Rumble was mid before the fight would suggest that even if we didn't see his direct walking path during it, we could extrapolate that him disappearing off of map suggests his ability to be here. I used a similar idea in my own Vi example. I saw Syndra mid last, and because I didn't see her upon immediately regaining focus on the map, I assumed she was top and lived. The same goes for the Bel'Veth example. We have a ward on the enemy blue at the start of the game, so we know that Lee Sin was starting bot side and clearing up, meaning that this shouldn't have come as a surprise. Knowing that we in fact switch our focus between multiple things just means that we need to be aware of our limitations to track during fights. And doing as much prep work as possible can help eliminate the punish that can happen due to our lack of info. So that's only 2 ideas, but I mentioned 3 at the beginning, so what's the last one? This is not even a gameplay fix, but rather a settings fix. Back when I was still playing competitively and playing at LANs frequently, the people there would often roast me, and surprisingly not because of my gameplay, but rather because I played on a weird setup. You often never brought monitors to these tournaments. They would have them already set up, and you just plug in your keyboard and mouse and go. So when I roll up to a massive 4K monitor and my screen looks like this, I got some questions. I tweeted out this picture a few years ago, and I'll admit it looks a little ridiculous, but there is a very good reason for it. This is one of the only ways to standardize your monitor size. You never really knew if you get something tiny or if you get a curved 4K behemoth like this. So in order to keep it consistent and not mess with my playing, I played in window 1280 by 720. And I mean, we won the whole tournament, so like, who's complaining anymore? But Korean and Chinese players who are surrounded by PC bongs also tend to do something similar. And a great side effect of this is that it also helps with our focus switching. Time for some more science, so buckle up. Our vision is limited. When you want to focus on something, you need to be looking at it pretty directly. In fact, our focus vision is really only the first 18 degrees of our immediate vision. If the object you're looking at is outside of this, it's considered in our peripheral. This vision is not great at noticing colors, details, or anything of the like, but it is great at noticing change. If a car is speeding past you in the corner of your eye, we have a reflex to turn and look at it, to put it in our direct focus vision. The further away from the center of our field of view, the worse our ability to discern detail gets. Have you ever tried to watch a movie in a theater from the front row? You would think that being close would be awesome, but actually you can't see anything. You're constantly having to look around the whole screen for any details. If you sit further back in the theater, the whole screen is contained within those 18 degrees of focus, and everything is a lot easier to see with way less neck pain. Basically, your monitor is the same thing. If you have a large monitor and you're playing in full screen, you see less information and detail than if you were to play on a smaller screen. Here is me switching from full screen on my monitor to 1280 by 720. And you can see that the actual amount of information on my screen doesn't change by much at all. However, it's taking up less than half the space on my screen. This means that I can see more information and more detail by actually making my screen smaller. It's easier for my peripheral vision to notice when an icon flashes on the minimap and it triggers me to look at it. And when I need to do so, the actual amount of distance my eyes need to move to cover that monitor is smaller as well. So while it defies common sense, a smaller screen is actually better for your ability to play games. Definitely give playing in windowed mode a shot, and you might notice that after the initial adjustment, your awareness is a lot better. So that's pretty much it. If you're wondering why my nameplates and health bars were so big, it's because my aspect ratio is much smaller than what most players will use. I actually can't record in anything higher than 720p while playing unless I want to get used to playing in full screen. And that's the unsolvable league problem, and kind of how to fix it. Like I said, we can't solve it. It's unsolvable after all. But these 3 ideas can help you to compensate for flaws in our basic human anatomy and help you to perform much better in your league games. And for everything else, there is skillcap.com. It's the fastest way to climb and get the rank you've always wanted. We take the highest priority skills you need to learn to climb ranks fast, such as wave control, and then break it down into a step-by-step course of bite-sized 1 to 2 minute videos that are easy to understand. So while you wait for your next game to start, you can learn freezing, fast pushing, slow pushing, bouncing waves, the list goes on, all in just a few minutes to maximize your improvement rate. These courses have been getting 5-star ratings from all of our users, raving at how helpful they are. That's not all though, as every week we release 10 brand new Smurf commentaries where a challenger player teaches you how to climb out of the exact rank you're stuck in. If you're looking for something more personal instead, then we've got you covered with one-on-one coaching from our trained challenger experts. All of this seems too good to be true? Well, don't worry. We're backed by a rank up guarantee. If you don't significantly improve while actively using SkillCapped, then you get your money back, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below and get the rank you've always wanted. All right, that's a wrap on this one, guys. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.